Welcome to the video lecture series based on Class 11 Sociology textbook Introducing Sociology. I'm Olivia Dirinamai, and today in this lecture we would be discussing three themes from Chapter 1, Sociology and Society. And those themes are Origin of Sociology, Nature of Sociology, and Scope of Sociology. Now let's have a brief look into the origin of sociology, how sociology came about as a social science discipline. It has been said that sociology has a long past but a very short history. Now what is this about having a long past and a short history? It is one of the youngest as well as one of the oldest of the social science. It is the oldest in the sense that for thousands of years, men have reflected upon societies in which they live. But it is one of the youngest because it was recently, only in the 19th century, that systematic attempts were made to establish it as a distinct branch of social science with its own distinct set of concepts and its own methods of inquiry. Various factors, both intellectuals and social, have contributed to pave the way for the origin of sociology. In the words of Baltimore, the conditions which gave rise to sociology were both intellectual and social. They include the Industrial Revolution, which began in Great Britain in the late 18th and early 19th century, the French Revolution, which began in 1789, the Enlightenment during the late 17th and 18th centuries, and advances and growth in natural sciences. Now let us have a brief look into each of these factors. Let's start with the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment, or commonly known as the Age of Reason, was a European intellectual movement of the late 17th and early 18th centuries, which put society and social relations under very intense scrutiny, with great emphasis on individualism, reason over superstition, and science over blind faith. The Enlightenment thinkers, they believed that by using scientific methods, they could explain the law of societies and human nature and thus solve all the problems. The enlightened thinkers, they questioned all those accepted knowledge and established rational and critical thinking as the central feature of the human being. Now, this enlightenment paved the way, enlightenment and the ideas, they paved the way for two very important revolutions which changed the structure of the society. And those two revolutions, some people have termed them as a twin revolution, were the French Revolution and the Industrial Revolution. Let us see what this twin revolution, that is the French Revolution and the Industrial Revolution, what kind of impact or what kind of influence did it have on the origin of sociology. It is often said that social sciences in the 19th century are mostly understood as responses to the problem of social order that was created by the weakening of the old order or old regime under the twin blows of the French Revolution and the Industrial Revolution. The French Revolution was a turning point in the history of thinking about society. How? It puts an end to the oppressive rule of the religious and feudal institutions and ushered in a new democratic order of society. The French Revolution brought far-reaching changes not only in the French society, but in societies throughout Europe and other continents too. Though it started from France, it had repercussions or consequences, or it had impact all over the world, we can say that. For example, even in India, now if we look into the preamble of the Indian Constitution, we can see three very important values. What are those? Liberty, equality, and fraternity. And these three values were the ideals of the French Revolution. This liberty, equality, and fraternity, which we have enshrined in the preamble of the Constitution of India, was an influence of the French Revolution. But the French Revolution is not only about positive impacts. It also had brought about negative impacts in the forms of chaos and disorder in the society, with the crumbling down of the old regime, and with so many new things coming up, new values coming up. There was also chaos and disorder in the society. Similarly, the Industrial Revolution also, which began in England in the late 18th and 19th centuries, also brought about both positive and negative effects. The Industrial Revolution brought about sweeping changes throughout Europe, that had never been seen before. The mechanization of industries and the factory system of production, which was brought about by the Industrial Revolution, resulted in major changes in social life and brought turmoil in the society. The simple rural life and small-scale home industries, which were there before the Industrial Revolution, were now replaced by urban complex life and mass production of goods. Cities or urban areas, the result of this industrialization, grew at an unprecedented rate because the rural people or the peasants living in the rural areas were now going to the towns or industrial towns to work as industrial labor, where they work under very dangerous working conditions, where wages were low. Before industrialization, children, women, normally they do not work, but now because of the low wage and to be able to survive, now even children and women also started working in the factories and in the industries. And these new industrial cities, which were coming up because of industrialization, were marked by the soot and the grime of factories. The working class, they were living in overcrowded slums, where there was bad sanitations, where crime rates were increasing. Poverty was the trademark or the hallmark of those industrial cities. City life in the industrial society became an altogether different way of life. You can say that industrialization changed the direction of civilization. So both this revolution, that is the French Revolution and the Industrial Revolution, they defied and shook the old world order. The direction of change was unclear and the stability of the social order seemed threatened. So an understanding of what was happening because of this revolution, because of the changes brought about by these two revolutions, was urgently needed and felt by the social thinkers of the time. As a response to this, social thinkers like Auguste Comte, Herbert Spencer and others argued that there was an urgent need to establish a separate science of society. They believed that such a science would be of great help in understanding the nature and problems of society and to find out solutions for the same. Now let's go to another factor which influenced the origin of sociology, growth of sociology as a social science subject. Another one is the growth of natural sciences. Sociology was also inspired and influenced a lot by the natural sciences, which had made much progress in the 19th century. 19th century was a period in which natural sciences has made much progress. And there was also growing conviction, growing belief among the thinkers of that time that the methods used in the natural sciences should and could be extended to the study of social phenomena. Now, for example, Charles Darwin's idea about organic evolution were a dominant influence on early sociological thought. It was applied to the social world by evolutionary thinkers, especially Herbert Spencer, who saw not just the living organisms, but society as constantly evolving from a lower to a higher stage. Meaning, just like Darwin said that we human beings, we evolve from monkeys or ape to the present form that we are. Herbert Spencer also believed that society also evolved from a lower to a higher state, like from the primitive hunting-gathering stage to feudal to agrarian stage, and from agrarian to modern industrialized stage. We believe that just like organisms also, or human beings also develop from ape to the present stage, society also evolved from a lower to a higher stage. These are some of the factors. We have the intellectual factors like the enlightenment and this natural sciences, growth of natural sciences. Then we have the social factors, social political factors, economic factors like the French Revolution and the Industrial Revolution. Because of all the changes happening in those 18th centuries, sociology as a subject came up to understand the changes that were happening. To be able to help the society, to help the people understand the nature and problems of society, and to find out solution for the same. Let us go to our next topic for today, that is nature of sociology. Now, sociology as a branch of knowledge has its own unique characteristics. It is different from other social sciences or from other sciences in certain respects. Let's see what are those main characteristics or nature of sociology. Number one, sociology is an independent science. It means that it is not treated and studied as a branch of any other science. It has its own field of study, boundary and method and field of inquiry. Two, sociology is a social science and not a physical science. The fact that sociology deals with the social universe distinguishes it from astronomy, physics, chemistry, geology, mathematics and other physical sciences. So though it is a science, it is not a physical science but a social science because it deals with the social universe. Now the third characteristic is sociology is a categorical and not a normative discipline. What does that mean? It means that sociology confines itself to statement about what is, not what should or ought to be. Meaning it does not make any kind of value judgment, saying that it is ethically neutral. Ethically neutral meaning it does not deal with problems of right and wrong, good and evil, and moral or immoral. It just makes statement of what it is. They don't make statement of it is good, it is bad, it is moral or immoral. The fourth characteristic is sociology is a pure science and not an applied science. What does it mean? Before we go into why sociology is a pure science and not an applied science, let us see what is a pure science. Pure science are those subjects, or the main aim of a pure science is the acquisition of knowledge for the sake of knowledge. It does not bother itself with its utilization, or it does not bother whether the knowledge acquired is useful or not useful. That is pure science. Whereas applied science, it concerns itself with how to apply the knowledge and how to use that knowledge. So now sociology is a pure science because its main aim is the acquisition of knowledge about human society, not utilization of that knowledge. Sociologists never determine questions of public policy and do not recommend to legislators or policymakers or lawmakers what laws should be passed or repealed. Their main concern is to study society to know about society. Now, what is another main characteristic is sociology is relatively an abstract science and not a concrete science. This does not mean the sociology is an art and not a science. It does not mean the sociology is abstract and very difficult or very complex. It only means that it is not interested in concrete manifestation of human events. It only means that it is more concerned with the form of human events and their patterns. For example, history will study about the French Revolution, particular revolution. But whereas sociology, it is not concerned with any particular war or a particular revolution, but war and revolution in general as a social phenomenon. They study wars or revolution in general as a social phenomena and as a type of social conflict. Another characteristic is sociology is a generalizing and not a particularizing science. Meaning, it does not study each and every event that takes place in society. It is not possible to do so also. So how does it do? How does it come to a conclusion? How does it come? How does it acquire the knowledge? It tries to make generalization on the basis of the study of some selected events. It can't study all the events in the society. There will be n number of social events in society. It's impossible. So they make generalization based on the basis of study of some selected events. For example, sociologists make generalization about the nature of a patriarchal society. And then the sociologists conclude that in a patriarchal society, men hold all the power, dominion, and privilege. How did they come to this generalization? How did they come to this conclusion? Is it possible to study each and every society, so-called patriarchal society in the world? It's impossible. So how does they do this? The sociologist does this not by examining all the patriarchal society, but by observing and studying a few. They observe and study a certain or a few selected society and come to the general conclusion. Now, the next characteristic is sociology is a general science and not a special social science. The general science, the area of inquiry of sociology is general and not specialized. It is concerned with human interactions and human life in general, unlike other social sciences which concentrate their attention on certain aspects of human interactions and activities and specialize themselves in those fields. For example, economics specializes itself in the study of economic activities, and political sciences focuses on political activities and so on. But sociology, they study human society or human activities in a general way and do not focus on just one particular activity or particular interaction. Now, going to the last and final characteristic, sociology is both a rational and an empirical science. Now, sociology has always claimed itself to be a science based on empiricism and rationality. These are two approaches to scientific knowledge. One is empiricism and the other one is rationality. Now, the empiricist collects facts through observation and experimentation, and the rationalist, they coordinates and arranges these facts into theories through reasoning and logical inference. Both the theories and facts are required in the construction of scientific knowledge. To quote Immanuel Kant, he says that theories without facts are empty and facts without theories are blind. All modern sciences therefore avail themselves to both empirical and rational resources, and sociology is not an exception. That is why one of the characteristics of sociology is that it is both a rational and an empirical science. Now, coming to the last topic for today's lecture, that is scope of sociology. Every science has its own area of study or fields of inquiry. It is difficult to study science systematically unless they have a proper boundary or their boundaries are demarcated and scope determined precisely. But unfortunately, in sociology, there is no single consensus of what is the scope, of what is its scope. So there are two main schools of thought among the sociologists about the scope. They are the formalistic or specialist school of thought, and the other one is the synthetic school of thought. Let us see some differences or the debate or discussion about these two schools of thoughts. Some of the main exponents or proponents of formalistic school of thoughts are George Simmel, Max Weber, Ferdinand Tönnies, and many others. For them, for the formalistic school of thought, They wanted sociology to be a pure, special and independent, distinct from other social sciences. They say the sociology is different, is independent, no connection with other social science. For them, the scope of sociology is very narrow, limited. They say that sociology should study particular aspect of social relationship in their abstract nature and not in any concrete situations. Like we should study, social relationships like interactions like competition, conflict and all this kind of thing. They say that those are the area or those should be the focus study of sociology. So they have, for this school of thought, they have limited the scope of sociology. Now, the other school of thought, that is a synthetic school of thought, whose main exponents are Emil Durkheim, Hobhouse, Sorokins and other. For them, they say the sociology should be a general science. It should be encyclopedic and all-inclusive. That the scope should be vast, that you cannot make sociology narrow. They say the sociology is closely related to other social sciences. Unlike the formalistic school of thought, who wanted sociology to be distinct and independent from other social sciences. Now, unlike the formalistic school of thought, who says that sociology is to study only particular aspect of social relationship, for the synthetic school of thought, they say no. All parts of social life are interrelated. Therefore, study of one aspect is not sufficient to understand the phenomena, the entire phenomena. Hence, sociology should study social life as a whole. Social life as a whole, in its entirety, they should study. So for the synthetic school of thought, more or less you can say that sociology studies anything and everything under the sun, and therefore for them the scope of sociology is extensive, it is very wide. Now from the discussion between the debate between the formalistic school of thought and the synthetic school of thought, we can come to the conclusion that formalistic school believes in the study of the parts which makes up the society, and the synthetic school advocates the study of the whole society. Though they belong to different school of thoughts, though we cannot say that they are opposed to one another, but the school complements each other. Thus, the sociology is a general science of society and a specialized discipline. We can come to that conclusion. And since sociology is a growing discipline, is a growing science, it is neither possible nor desirable to restrict its scope. It studies not only particular social relationships, but also studies society in its entirety. It aims at understanding all aspects of society. Sociology, so we can say that sociology, the scope of sociology is very broad and extensive. It studies from interaction from individual levels. Like example, sociology will study the interaction between a shopkeeper and the customer, or between the teacher and the student, or it studies national issues like poverty, or it studies even international issues also, media, how media is influencing youth all over the world. We cannot narrow the scope of sociology, or we cannot say that sociology should study only this and not that. We can come to the conclusion that sociology, its scope is vast, increasing all the time, as its main aim is to study all aspects of society. That's it for today. Thank you.